Hi folks, and welcome to the back garden. It's been a while since you saw the back garden. There's not really been anything over winter. We've got Jess with us today. She's excited to get stuck in. We've got a not very fun task to start with, but the back garden, we've been sort of... Rue, you're in the shot. It's very rude. We don't really know what to do we?
We don't.
There's kind of three main things that, well, you want to grow more flowers.
Yes.
I want to grow more veg.
Yes.
Which Jess isn't too happy about, but I think is only fair. And the other thing is that we really want to make it a bit more biodiverse. One of the things that will bring me out into the garden is if I'm looking for creepy crawlies, enjoying birds, that kind of thing. Probably the same for you as well, right? I think once it's there, you'd enjoy it. So, behind us, this is the shady part of the garden. The sun rises over there, sets over there. It's kind of setting now, it's late afternoon. And this bit is in permanent shade. And it's been kind of forsaken for ages. We haven't done anything with it really. We tried planting a few things, some bugles, some primrose. There were some currant bushes down the end that just died pretty much.
Foxglove's survived.
Has it actually survived?
Well, it's in its winter stage, but it's not dead.
But the plan today is to start on the creation of what is kind of like a woodland garden. We're going to be planting lots of native species. I didn't find much information on this out there, so I've taken inspiration from when I used to work in woodlands, coppicing and that kind of stuff. It will hopefully be a little bit nostalgic for me. And we've just at the bottom of the frame, you might be able to see that I've started work on putting in a pond. It's not the best kind of pond. It's one of those pre-made fiberglass ones, but I found it really cheap and it's better than nothing. So the plan of action for today is relatively simple, but the first thing we want to do is basically strip out all of this grass. It's mostly grass in here. It really seems to take over. I think it's relatively rich soil, which I don't think will be an issue. The plan for today is to strip that back, to plant up some nice bulbs. We've got a really exciting delivery from Wild Your Garden. That is also a fantastic YouTube channel, Wild Your Garden with Joel Ashton. Links in the description. If you're interested in trying to encourage more wildlife or biodiversity in your garden, do go and check it out. And they have a shop as well where you can buy all sorts of bulbs and flowers and seeds, all this kind of stuff. He really specializes in wildlife ponds, not like the one I've built, actual good ones. But yeah, do check that out. And we're going to be planting a series of bulbs in here, snowdrops, winter aconite, wood anemone, kind of classic woodland species. And then behind that, so I'm thinking we'll do a few little clusters of bulbs and maybe have those more towards the front for structure. And then at the back, we're going to be sowing a woodland wildflower seed mix. There's about 19 different species, some of which are really interesting. There's not much in here at the moment, like I say, an awful lot of grass and maybe some red dead nettle. I think that's about the most interesting thing that we've seen, and it really doesn't get much use from wildlife. It does need a bit more structure. As time goes on, we'll put in some shrubs, maybe something with berries for birds, that kind of thing. But for now, we're going to start with what we can manage. And because we've had the bulb delivery, we've got to get going. We've got to get them in the ground. So this isn't particularly fun, and you might be wondering if it's a bit over the top. I know I certainly am. But the idea is I'm just trying to get the pernicious weeds. There's things like couch grass in here, lesser celandine, which in itself is quite a nice plant, and lots of other things with just deep tap roots. And generally, especially in a garden where you're trying to encourage biodiversity, a few weeds here and there aren't the problem. But we're going to be trying to get this wildflower seed established, and if there's a load of pernicious stuff in here, maybe not pernicious might be the wrong word, but if there's a load of weeds in here, well, maybe weeds is the wrong word. If there's a load of plants in here that are really well established, then they're just going to outcompete the seeds, and we're just not going to have a very good establishment. So we're back. It's been a day or two, and hopefully you can see that we've done a lot of work weeding this border behind me. We haven't got absolutely everything out, and that's fine because we're going to be mulching as well. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and that is I have never planted a bulb in my life, unless you count allium sets, you know, onion sets. And I did find this bulb planter at the allotment. It was in the shed, so hopefully that's going to come in handy today. But because I've never planted any bulbs, I did actually go away and look in to what these bulbs need. And the winter aconite and wood anemone can be a little bit tricky to get established, apparently. So I'm glad I did go away and look at what they need. Generally, a few ground rules for kind of bulbs. You want the 3-5-7 rule. You know, generally you plant in clumps of odd numbers because you just do. It's the most aesthetically pleasing. And you generally will want to plant the bulb about 3 times as deep as the size of the tuber itself. Quite often you do commonly see people recommending to kind of scatter stones or gravel if you want a nice random distribution of your bulbs. We're not going to be doing that today. What I'm going to be doing is planting mostly in clumps of 3 along the front of the border, and then the back is going to be for the woodland wildflower mix. And it's a little bit early to sow that woodland wildflower mix. It's coming towards the end of February now, and this soil is still going to be quite cold because of the ambient temperature, but also because this is completely shaded. And the bulbs are tricky. I'm not sure how well they're going to do in complete shade. You know, generally they evolve for woodlands which are very shaded, but there is dappled light, and quite often they're used to a coppice management cycle, you know, where every kind of 5-7 years there will be a massive influx of light, and they'll have a few years to kind of grow and do their thing. I'm just going to get stuck in, popping the clumps of bulbs in. And in terms of distribution, I'm going to be pairing the winter aconite and the snowdrop, because when they are together, I think they just look really magical. And I'm going to concentrate planting a little bit around the kind of stump feature, I think, because that will just look amazing. This is one of the first times I've ever properly invested in trying to make something look nice in the garden. So fingers crossed it goes well. The idea of it coming out does fill me with quite a lot of excitement. Maybe it's just my inexperience, but that took me a lot longer than I was expecting. The day is definitely getting on a bit, so I've made myself a little cup of tea, having a rest. And I think it'd be a good time to mention that I have a Patreon. You can find all the links in the description if you want to learn a bit more about it, but it's just time for me to say an extra special thank you to my Chili Pepper tier patrons as well, Tony C. Smith and Michael Ryan. Today's video has been made possible by my very lovely and supportive patrons. If you're not able to support or not interested, completely fine. I get that 100%. But hopefully you've made it this far and you're enjoying today's video. So do remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to see what this looks like later on in summer, hopefully it will develop really nicely. Although, knowing my luck, most of my projects don't go to plan. So just remember to hit the bell as well, and you'll get notified when I later post a video. Hopefully you noticed as we were fast forwarding earlier, I've gone through and laid a mulch down here. And what I'm doing is just using, well, it's not leaf mold yet, it's becoming leaf mold, but these are leaves that were harvested this winter, collected this winter. And the main reason that I'm putting these down, I guess A, is for a little bit of weed suppression, but mainly the main reason is so that I know where I've planted things. It's always really important to mark when you've planted bulbs, because obviously they're quite invisible and you don't want to come through when you're weeding and accidentally take them out. I can really, that would be very much something that I was likely to do. So another thing I want to do is just come through here and give these a good water. This is very wet, so I'm not sure it's completely necessary, but just wetting down the leaf mold, making sure that it's not going to go anywhere, because it's been quite dry recently, is just quite a good idea, I think. And then what I'm going to do is get the cardboard out, and I'm going to mulch the back half of the bed just with some cardboard. That is going to look pretty ugly for a while, but it's just a temporary measure really until the end of March when I can actually start sowing some of the woodland flowers. Cardboard is just fantastic, isn't it? The way that it just breaks down, returns naturally, just a fantastic, fairly natural weed suppressing membrane. So that half of the border that you just saw, I think it's going to look really nice as those bulbs and flowers eventually come out, but this bit behind me, I think, is where it's going to start to get extra special. I'm kind of running out of time to get this done today, but I'm sure there will be another video on this in the future. We have here all of these kind of rounds, all of this spruce timber, and we had an old spruce tree here that had to come out really, and I want to do some cool stuff over here. So I've planted a few bulbs, lots and lots around the stump. I think that's going to look really, really nice, but I want to break some of these logs up, use them to make frog hotels and that kind of thing, something for amphibians next to the pond. It's going to be really nice. I hope that they get used. We're going to bury some of these in the ground as well, because buried rotting wood is a fantastic habitat for lots and lots of invertebrates, grubs and things like that that like to eat the wood and also pupate and hibernate and do all that kind of good stuff in there. So I'm kind of sweeping the bulbs around, and I'm going to plant one or two over there, and I'm going to get all of this mulched with cardboard for now as well. I'm starting to get really quite excited about how this might look later on. You might also have noticed this big mound of earth, and this is all from digging out the pond. So I'm going to go through here and fill some of this in for the pond as well, just to neaten it up a little bit. Just starting to put a couple more bulbs in here. This cardboard is going to work really well, although it doesn't look too pretty. It's also just starting to rain, which is perfect, and it's going to damp down all of the cardboard for us. I'm really hoping this is going to prove to be a lovely strip, improve the beauty of the garden, but also the biodiversity. If you're interested in improving the biodiversity of your own garden, you might be looking at trying out No Mow May, which I really recommend. But if you want to know what I think some of the problems with No Mow May are, you can watch this video here.